Today, Eric, we're going to talk a little bit about door-to-door, right? Ooh. We're going to talk about how door-to-door affects your company, whether you do door-to-door or not.
People are going to Google pest control after they've talked to these people, whether or not they go with them. I've had plenty of customers who call in and I'll say, hey, how'd you hear about us? And they'll say, somebody stopped by our house. And I'm like, oh, was it one of our guys? And they're like, no, it wasn't.
One, protect or retain your customers that might be subject to a door-to-door pitch. And also how you can benefit from somebody that's canvassing in an area where you have customers, even when you're not the one doing the canvassing.
You're listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Allan Draper and Eric Bassett.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast. I'm Allan Draper, as always, and I have Eric Bassett here with me. What's going on, Eric?
Hey, Allan. I feel like a lot is going on. We're hiring people. We're kind of getting ready for the craziness to begin. It's going to be wild, man, but I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's that time of season, that time of the year. Lots of good things going on. Lots of the, at this point, it feels like a lot of the preparation for the summer is going on, right? It's not the calm before the storm. For some people, this is the storm. People in HR, people that are doing a lot of interviews, that they're going to be training once people get on board and things like that. So, yeah, cool. It's an exciting time. Summer's right around the corner. Lots of opportunity. This is going to be a great bug year for a lot of reasons. A lot of my markets have received a lot of moisture, lots of snow, lots of rain. I think that's going to be a really good thing, depending on, what the spring, weather brings in terms of temperatures. So, this is going to be awesome. Going to be an awesome year. So we're doing back-to-back podcasts today, back-to-back recordings. So we have, we just recorded the episode about the path from $0 to $1 million in annual revenue, the 5,000 or 30,000 foot view, whatever you want to call it. If you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back. There's a lot, I think, in there, Eric, that people could apply to their business at any stage. So make sure you go back and listen to that after you listen to this one, of course. And with this episode, we all have buddies in the industry, people that work for companies that aren't our own. And that's one of my favorite things about the bug business is that people are cool to one another. We help each other out. If there's something that you feel like from this episode or the previous one that we just recorded, or frankly, any episode that we've recorded, but especially this one, since you're listening to it now, if there's something that could help maybe one of your employees, somebody that's on your staff, or even one of your buddies in the industry, one of your friends, somebody that you respect, they're going to thank you if you think about them and say, hey, especially, and if you pinpoint like a couple of minutes, like, hey, at the 15-minute mark, they're talking about this, and you share that with them, they'll appreciate you. I know Eric and I will, and it's a great way to say thanks. We have a lot of grateful listeners that are hitting me up. Hey, appreciate what you guys are doing. Just keep going. They'll, message me just to tell me that. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you taking time also, because I know how busy you are. I know how busy everybody is. I know how busy I am. And you giving us this time, even if you're in your truck right now, even if you're, you have a 15-minute break, you're eating your lunch at your desk or whatever it is, we appreciate your time and appreciate you tuning in. So today, Eric, we're going to talk a little bit about door-to-door, right? Ooh, like so many people, it's such a triggering thing, right? For a lot of people. And I think I understand that, but specifically we're going to get in today and we're going to talk to both, this message is for, don't hit pause or skip just yet. If you don't do door-to-door, we're going to talk about how door-to-door affects your company, whether you do door-to-door or not. And some things that you can do to one, kind of protect or retain your customers that might be subject to a door-to-door pitch from a very good salesperson, I might add, and also how you can benefit from somebody that's canvassing in an area where you have customers, even when you're not the one doing the canvassing. So, and I think I want to start there, Eric. There's a lot of people have a hard time with door to door, and it's mostly people that don't do it and that have their customers stolen, which I get. I've been on the other side of this too. And if you think about it, customers that bought from you door to door have shown a propensity to buy from somebody on the doors. So they're more likely to switch than somebody that won't answer their door, never at home, never will buy something from a door-to-door salesperson, whatever. And this is one of the number one reasons why it's probably a top 3 or 4 why door-to-door accounts can traditionally fall off a little faster than traditional marketing, especially like a referral or a family friend, things like that. So, but here's the good news for those folks that aren't doing door to door when somebody's canvassing the area. And so the good news plus a tip. What people are going to do is they're going to go Google pest control. And a lot of times, even if they sign up with a company, they are going to go Google that company's name, right? If they sign up right then, because the salesperson is going to be like, no, it's got to be right now. My truck's like literally right there. You can see it, like, right? The good reps. They're going to want to do that service right then, but they're still going to go Google. And, there's a couple of things you can do. You can hit AdWords really hard in certain geos, and you can even bid on competitors' names. So if there's somebody, especially some of these larger teams, because somebody's going to hop, and this is true of people that buy from that company as well as people that don't. They're like, hey, who's this company, right? And then they go to their Facebook group and tell everybody, yeah, this guy, he's like looking in my windows. That always happens, even though it wasn't. So you can do that. But regardless, even if you don't want to use that tactic, it's still going to generate some buzz. People are going to be like, oh, I do have ads. They're going to start seeing some stuff. And you might get a call or two just from that.
Yeah, 100%. And what's interesting is, the one cool thing that door-to-door does for every pest control company, whether you use door-to-door or not, is that it raises the level of awareness to pest issues in your entire market. That's a good thing, right? So take that for what it's worth. And then the other thing, just like Allan said, people are going to Google pest control after they've talked to these people, whether or not they go with them. I've had plenty of customers who call in and I'll say, hey, how'd you hear about us? And they'll say, somebody stopped by our house. And I'm like, oh, was it one of our guys? And they're like, no, it wasn't.
Exactly.
And I'm like, well, thanks for the free leads, so-and-so, So if you have a really good, GMB profile and you have a really good brand awareness in your market, still focus on those things, because those things will help you in a door-to-door scenario, even if you don't use door-to-door.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about what, still kind of focusing on, actually, this applies to companies that do door-to-door as well as those that don't. We have certain practices that we use to, quote unquote, protect our customers or whatever. But what are some things that, you might recommend for a company to protect their customers during the summer when door-to-door teams are out and about?
So there's a couple of things, and I like to go from probably the simplest things up to stuff that might not be as simple to execute. But the first thing is just remind your technicians how important it is that clients' homes look pest-free as well as being pest-free, right? It's times like that where, if I'm a door-to-door salesman and I'm going around, if I knock on someone's house and I'm looking in the eaves, if I see a cobweb, if I see a wasp nest, if I see a trail of ants, If I see indications that there could be rodent damage or rodent activity, I am going to hit on that stuff so hard. And if that person says, "Oh, I already used somebody," I'm like, "Oh man, like this perfect timing, right?" Because now I'm going to probably, in not maybe as direct way, but indirectly discredit their current pest control company because I'm seeing indications that they're not getting treated as well as they should be, right? So in that part of the year, like I'm not saying that it's more important to do that in that part of the year than any other part of the year, but really hitting an
But it kind of
emphasis
is.
like, yeah, right. Like, dude, please,
This is
please
a
do not. And
great point.
my brother-in-law, my business partner, Jake, will tell our technicians, he'll say, "Hey, our average customer stays with us, whatever it is, say 4 years, right? And it's $500 a year. That's $2,000. If you leave a wasp nest up there and a door-to-door guy comes and sells them because you left that wasp nest up there, that is a $2,000 wasp nest, right? So, dude, thing number one, just make sure that customers' homes look pest-free. That's the simplest way to put it. Thing number two, this also has to do with the technicians. If you have an opportunity to talk to your customer and make a personal connection, please, please make a personal connection, man. I can't tell you how valuable that is. We talked about this before when it comes to the degree of difficulty of switching people over. If that person knows they have a pest, like if they know they have a pest control company but don't know who it is, I'm switching them over. If that person has a pest control company, they know who it is, and maybe they've met the technician a couple times, I'm probably still switching them over. If that customer, like whether they know what pest control company it is or not, but they know their technician by name and have a personal connection with that technician,
Over.
dude, I'm not switching them over. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to do my thing. So the technicians who are listening or the operators who are listening, have your technicians make a personal connection with your customers any chance they get.
Yep. And this process, there's things that you can do in the short term, which are going to be less effective than the things that take a year or 2 or 4 or whatever. You can make, that I love this point about the visibility of pest control, right? Especially with cobwebs, making sure that they maybe go around the house twice or whatever, just making sure, because that's such an easy selling point for somebody coming door to door. I've shared this thought kind of going back to this relationship with the technician. I've shared this thought before, but just to kind of reemphasize how important that is. And it's not a, snap your fingers and it happens type scenario. And it varies from technician to technician. Some are a lot more comfortable, petting the family dog and remembering names and, being charismatic, where some are more, keep to themselves type technicians. But they did a study because they kept finding that specialists in the medical field got sued at a much higher rate than family practitioners, right? I've shared this before. Long story short, after surveys, they found out that the reason why people didn't want to sue a family practitioner, even when they showed, hey, it was actually his fault, he sent you to the wrong specialist in the first place, or she, was because they had a connection to the family practitioner and they didn't have a connection to the specialist. So with that thought in mind, and this is something that you do that takes time. It's one of the longer term things that, you do throughout the year, and not just, March, beginning of March, right before the company comes. But if you can, do some type of incentive program where you're like, hey, it's, try not to make people uncomfortable, but get creative with it. Like take a picture with your customer day, or, some type of program where there's some connection. A lot of times, Eric, techs they almost want to like not be noticed that they're there, which is the exact opposite of what we want as pest control company owners. We want our customers to know we're there. We want them to know that we were at their house. We want them to know that we were there for a sufficient amount of time. But there are technicians that I've had them. They didn't want to ring the doorbell, and they didn't want to, they wanted to be in and out really quickly. And so maybe make some type of, and maybe it's an annual thing that you do where it's like, hey, we're, we're doing a competition or we're doing teams or whatever. And we want some contact, reintroduction. Hey, I've been here a few times. My name's John, whatever it is, that connection with the customer. And that will help a lot. Like, hey, thank them for their business. Now let's talk about some other things. I've heard of companies. There's a book that was written by a guy named Robert Cialdi. I think it's called Persuasion or something. We'll have to put it in the show notes. He's a professor at ASU, and he talked about how there's this idea that when you do something for somebody, in most people that aren't psychopaths, they feel the need to repay you. And it can be something dang near nominal. It could be opening a door for somebody. It could be, something really small. And so you can get creative with your pest control company, but right around this time, right? Or maybe even a little deeper, maybe into April, because door-to-door guys come out, door-to-door folks come out, starting late April, early May. But you send them a little thank you. Hey, we appreciate you being with us. Here's $5 off your next service. Or, we're going to make a donation to XYZ Foundation in your name. Or, here's $50 off if you refer a friend, or something that they feel like I think that, is something where, they feel like, hey, the way that I'm going to pay this company back is I'm going to keep using them, so that when the door-to-door guy comes, it's like, hey, you beat them to the punch. You're, and then I've heard, so everything from that to full-on emails. I don't know if you've heard about this, Eric, but I'm aware of companies that they'd send an email out. Hey, you're likely to get your door knocked on by another company. Just wanted to let you know, this is what your service entails, blah, 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 blah. You've been with us for so long, whatever, right? Some type of campaign to that effect.
Dude, yes. Okay, so a couple things. The book you're talking about is called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion.
Yes.
Awesome book. And there's actually a really cool it's like a 10-minute video on YouTube that is an awesome little summary of that book. But to kind of touch on what you were talking about with like emails, step further, we have sent these emails. And we have actually sent these in postcard form. So wow, really cool little tidbit. We use Vistaprint for this, but you can go on Vistaprint and you can do a double-sided postcard, which means there's no stuffing or postage. Like there's no, envelopes you have to worry about. It's just a postcard. And on the front of the postcard, put a picture of yourself, put a picture of your team, picture of your family, whatever you're going to do, put your company logo on it, right? And the picture is the personalized note. You want them to connect with you personally. On the flip side of that, put a little bit about your company mission, right? What you're trying to do, why you're there. Put a little bit about the service that they get from you and you thanking them for them supporting a local family-owned business or whatever you want to say. And then put some information about the fact that they are going to get their door knocked on, right? Hey, you're going to come in contact with door-to-door representatives from other companies. Maybe they say stuff about us. Maybe they don't. If you have any questions or concerns, contact us first before you sign any paperwork or any agreements with any of them, right? We can't guarantee that we're always going to be the cheapest company, but we can guarantee that we're going to deliver the best value, right? Have some kind of confidence statement in there. Put all your contact information. Vistaprint's going to ask you for a CSV file. You can pull that report from usually your CRM. It gets all your customers' addresses. You plug it into Vistaprint. It sends all those postcards out to all your customers automatically. And that's just for customers that you don't have emails for. If you have emails for those customers, just send them an email. And if you want, I guess you could send them both, but emails are free. So,
dang, Eric breaking out the book of golden secrets. This is awesome. And you know what's funny is that I can hear some moaning, about the cost and the time and all this. And it's like, well, let me ask you this. Would you pay that nominal cost for a new customer? Then why wouldn't you pay it to keep a current one?
Man,
So,
getting the acquisition cost is a real problem. And I think people like overlook the difference between like acquisition cost and like just costs of like keeping
mhm.
customers, you know? And if you do things right, I mean, that customer can be with you for a very long time. You just have to be a little more proactive in the scenario of doing that. So put a little effort into the whole retaining customer game, and you will save so much money on that. Way easier to save a customer than it is to find a new one.
Exactly.
Um, oh, and then I was going to say, put your license information. If you have any specific licensing information for your area, put that license information on the postcard or the email or whatever. In our market, that's like a go-to for a lot of the door-to-door guys. They'll say that we don't have some specific kind of licensing, which is always a joke because we do have it, but they always mispronounce it or like call it the wrong thing, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great point. Adds that instant credibility. So that's awesome. Now let's move on. We're working with probably about 10 minutes left here. Let's move on to what happens when let's do two scenarios. I've got two scenarios for you, Eric. Customer calls in, says, "Hey, somebody was just by my house. They pointed out a few cobwebs, said that you guys aren't doing a good job for us, but we didn't sign up with them." And then the same scenario, but they're calling to cancel because they did, or the actual door to door rep is calling to cancel, which happens a lot, where they'll just call the company and cancel on behalf of the customer.
I'm glad you brought this up because we run into the same exact scenario every single summer. So first scenario, customer has a door-to-door rep stop by. He notices some things and they didn't sign up. We train all of our staff the same process for sales and customer service. And it starts with acknowledgement, a lot of acknowledgement. Hey, I totally understand how you'd be frustrated with that. If I were you and I saw that and somebody pointed that out to me, I would have some questions about the service provider that I
Love
use.
it.
And then I would also point out, hey, Mother Nature is really difficult to control, right? We're a pest control company. And we actually do kind of rely on some feedback so that we can come back and we can take care of those issues. It's why we have an unlimited warranty on all your services. Just so happens that in this scenario, it was a door-to-door guy, right? So I really apologize for the scenario that we kind of put you in. I'd be more than happy to come back in there and take care of that for you. Let me prove it to you that we're the best company still, or whichever, right? And try to close that deal to have a technician come back out and get that taken care of. I've had to pull the like service manager or team leader card before, like, hey, I'll have a team leader come out and take care of that. I'll have a service manager come out and personally make sure that your house is well taken care of. Add in a little bit of schmoozing on there because that customer might have a tough taste in their mouth from the scenario. If they already signed up with the other company, I think it's important to follow the same kind of process, right? I would follow the same thing: acknowledgement, confidence. Ask some questions. I like to identify, hey, what was it about that other company that really pushed you to make the decision to change, right? Because some customers will tell you, they'll say, actually, it wasn't a difference in the quality of the service. I just felt bad for this sales guy. Like he seemed he was working really, really hard. So I thought he'd do him a favor,
Yeah, because they like the sales rep.
Yeah. And I've actually gotten to the point before where like that was it. They were like, I just feel like I needed to help the guy. And I'll say, hey, on average, these guys make, $150 a sale, right? That's the commission they make. I was like, if I give you $150 off your service, right, and you stay with me, you could just give $100 to that guy and cancel your account, right? It's a win-win-win for everybody. He gets his commission, you get a quality pest control service, which is me, right? And I get to keep a customer, And of course, that's the craziest version of it. But would I do it? 100% I would. But ultimately, it comes down to understanding a customer's, we call them wins, their wants, interests, and needs. And at the time when somebody switches over to another company, what's going on is that that company has identified and executed on their wins better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have that conversation where you can re-identify what those are and then prove to them, or at least let them give you a chance to prove it to them. And in some situations, you can have some buyer's remorse laws on your favor. Some places you don't. You really need to be aware of what laws are in effect in your markets. So that's kind of another thing. And then the last scenario was the salesman calling, right? The sales guy calls on behalf of your customer. Okay, pro tip.
And you know it. Let's say that
Yes.
person takes the call. They know it. It comes from an 801, right?
Yeah. Right. So pro tip here. One thing that you can do if you suspect that that's an issue, just say, hey, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll make note of this for you. I'll make note of the cancellation. We'll be in contact if we have any questions. Appreciate your call, yada, yada. And the tough part about this is that you still have to go through the process because there's a chance, it's like a smoke screen with an objection. There's a chance that it's true. And that really is your customer talking to you.
Exactly.
So you do have to go through the process, right? I guess you get to show a door-to-door guy how good your customer service skills are. That's fine. When you hang up with the guy, wait 10 minutes and then call back the numbers that you have on file for that customer. Okay. Call that customer back and say, hey, hey, John, this is Eric with Natera Pest Control. We got a call earlier from somebody claiming to be you. And I just wanted to make sure that we're making the changes to your account that you actually wanted to, and just see what they say. Right. And you can just ask them straight up, say, was I talking to you earlier? Or was I talking to like a salesman from another company? You have nothing to lose at this point. They're probably going to cancel anyway. Just ask them and see what they say. And you'd be surprised. A lot of people like, yeah, the guy told me that I just had to sign up for him. And when I asked him about canceling with my existing company, he said that, quote unquote, he would take care of it. Right. And then he goes, I didn't know that he was going to call you. And I was like, yeah, he called in and told me that he was you. Like we were talking about, like we were trying to verify information and he was acting like he was
and you have sensitive financial information on your file. So.
Yeah. So,
made us a little nervous.
Once the cat's out of the bag, you do have an upper hand. Right. The hard part is if anybody's out there wondering like, hey, is this legal? Technically, if the customer gives permission, and Allan, you can kind of correct me here. If the customer gives permission that they can call on their behalf, technically it's legal. And if somebody was going to press charges, it would have to be the customer to pursue that. But aside from the whole legalities of everything, that's how I would handle it. Yeah.
I mean, a big part of it is that you don't know if you can assume that they received permission from the customer, but you don't know. And so following up with them, is very reasonable. Here's the kicker. I want people to make sure that they understood and that they heard when Eric said, you wait for 10 minutes. So, and I've made this mistake before because we've done similar things in the past, and it's a practice of ours if we suspect that it might be somebody else, where we just immediately call back. And then what does the customer do? They give the phone to the sales rep, and you're talking to the same guy. So that's a really big part of it. And I think a lot of times this is a long shot, but I think if you're good, I think you can save maybe 20% of them, maybe more than that. And Eric hit on a couple of things. So wait till the salesperson's gone, because they're not going to, a lot of people that buy from door-to-door sales reps, they do so because the individual's right there. They're on their doorstep. They don't want to tell them no. They, have a hard time, like whatever, especially when it comes to switchovers. But if they're no longer there and you're like, hey, Susan, I just wanted you to know I was super nervous about protecting your information. And then you go back through and you say, yeah, they acted like you. And I was just really suspicious because I knew it wasn't you. Then they're going to feel like, hey, this guy is looking out for me. This guy cares about my information. And it sounds like the door-to-door rep might have been borderline dishonest. If he was dishonest, which is always a question when somebody's buying on the door, is like, hey, can I trust this person that randomly showed up at my house and asked for a credit card. So I think those are two big takeaways, but I think that's a great way to handle it. I wanted to add, as we're wrapping up here, there is this immediate knee-jerk reaction to just start bad mouthing that other company. And we usually know who it is because it's not the first person, or, or they might mention it or whatever. We can take a stab in the dark. We got a call last week, same scenario. Do not do that. It doesn't, a lot of times people think that it helps them. And door-to-door reps do this too. And it doesn't help. Rookies do it, where they're like, oh, you're with, you gave this scenario where somebody saw some cobwebs on, when they're knocking doors, and you approach it gingerly, right? This is their house. You don't want to talk about how disgusting it is. And then you don't want to throw the company that they hired, they made a decision with, under the bus, because what they're going to do is they're going to dig their heels in. If you're like, yeah, you hired them, you're such an idiot. That's what they're hearing. When you're like, that company's, they're terrible. What they're hearing is, you're calling me an idiot because I'm the one that made the decision. I hired them. So the reaction is, oh, it's awesome, Susan, that you see the value in pest control. That's very important, right? You kind of work from there. And then on the other side, it's, yeah, 100%. No. And the way that you phrase it, that, college age kid, most likely out there trying to make some money. Can't blame them. They're out there working hard. And you try not to put the customer in a position where they have to like choose, right? That's why your scenario, which I've never really heard of before, is so unique, where it's like, hey, I'll give you this credit and tell me that you wouldn't retain a customer for $150. Like, that's a no-brainer. And you're like, because you're doing the opposite of throwing that other company under the bus. You're like saying, hey, flick this kid $100 bill or whatever. And that's such an interesting point. But I think ultimately the idea is you have a short time where you have to resell your service, and they're giving you an opportunity to do that. And you need to jump on it, and you need to go about it the right way. And you have to stay calm, cool, and collected. You can't get all upset, especially if it's the owner that answers the phone. And that's usually, CSR probably won't get as upset as an owner might, especially if they find out that the door-to-door rep was lying, saying you didn't have the licenses, or you didn't have the insurance, or you guys don't. And we've heard it all. Ultimately, it's about making sure that you're rebuilding that trust that the customer has in you and reselling them on your company. And this is just a really great way to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And just like you said, you can't lose your cool. Got to be calm, cool, collected. When people call in and they mention that a door-to-door guy stopped by their house, I act like it's no big thing. In fact, this happens all the time, right? Like, oh, hey, yeah, those guys are out and about. Totally understand. Tell me, what happened. Tell me about the situation. And whether they're concerned, or whether they got switched over, or whether they got pitched, or whatever the situation is,
yep,
my demeanor is the same. I don't change the way that I act towards the customer, because confidence, and especially in that kind of scenario, is really key. Like, these door-to-door guys don't worry me. They don't make me shake, right? I'm fine. I'm the local company that has been here and will be here much longer after these door-to-door guys are gone.
They're back at home. I'm going to be the one taking care of you, for sure. We've covered a lot. There's a lot that you can do to use the buzz that's going to be going around your service areas this summer due to door-to-door. And if you have questions, reach out to us. Let's start some discussions. I have a challenge for the first person that brings up an idea of how to kind of parlay a door-to-door rep coming to your customer into a positive experience in our Bug Bucks group on Facebook. So whoever listens to this, and I'm not going to give you anything, you just get the reward of like helping other people, and it's proof that you're listening to our podcast till the very end. But I think it would start a really great discussion, Eric. about what other people are doing to really protect their customers. And it would be a violation of antitrust law, and there's no way it would work. And I'm not suggesting this at all. But if we could all just keep our customers and then get new customers from people that don't have pest control or that canceled, and there's nothing active, that would be awesome. But I know door-to-door folks won't go for that, which is completely understandable. So let's keep that discussion going in our Facebook group. If you have any new ideas, let us know. If you're with your geo-specific ideas or whatever, you're looking for feedback, make sure to post that in our Facebook group, and we'll keep that discussion going as we prepare for the busy season. And as always, keep building those pest control companies, and we'll catch you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.